I always thought love would arrive quietly, like a soft breeze on a spring morning, gentle, almost unnoticed. But the day I met Adrian Blake, it struck like lightning. It was a Tuesday afternoon, the kind that leaves you heavy with exhaustion. After endless lectures, I climbed onto the bus, balancing my backpack and a worn canvas tote, eyes down, ready to disappear into myself until my stop. "Here, take my seat," a deep voice said. I looked up. He stood there, dressed in a charcoal gray coat that belonged on a magazine cover, not on public transit. His smile was easy, warm, disarming. "Thank you," I murmured, sliding into the seat. I expected him to pull out his phone, to drift into his own world, but he stayed nearby, holding the rail, his gaze flicking to me with quiet curiosity. "You don't look like you're from around here," he said lightly, almost cautious. Caught off guard, I blinked. "I'm a student. University of Texas Languages major." "That explains it," he said, studying me just long enough to make me feel seen, but not uneasy, confident, yet careful. "Sorry, that probably sounded strange." I smiled in spite of myself. He laughed softly, and the sound was warm, genuine-like. He actually cared what I thought. We talked until my stop. Not about anything monumental: coffee shops, favorite parks, how Texas weather couldn't decide between summer or winter. But it felt easy, natural. When the bus hissed to a stop, I stood, to leave, ready to slip back into my quiet, ordinary life. But then he called out, "Wait, can I get your number? I'd like to see you again." Normally, I would have said no. I wasn't the type to hand out my number to strangers, but something in the way he looked at me, like I was the only person in that crowded bus, made me nod. Sure. The very next night, I found myself outside a restaurant I had no business being in, the kind with golden lighting, sleek cars waiting at valet, and a mata d who looked at you as if they already knew your credit score. I hesitated, smoothing my simple black dress. Then Adrian appeared, smiling like I was exactly the person he'd hoped to see. "You look incredible," he said, kissing the back of my hand with an old-world charm that felt like stepping into a story. Dinner with him was like crossing into another life. He ordered wine I couldn't pronounce and spoke of his childhood in Europe, about his adoptive parents, Robert and Helena DuPont, who split their time between Paris and Geneva, curating art shows and hosting charity events. He explained he'd returned to Texas to reconnect with his roots. He wasn't bragging. He simply shared, like someone trusting me with pieces of himself. And when he asked about me, my classes, my family, my dreams, he listened. Really listened. By the time he walked me to my car, I realized something I hadn't expected. I wanted to see him again. From then on, we were inseparable. Study sessions became coffee dates. Coffee dates turned into weekend hikes. Weekend hikes became late-night phone calls that stretched until dawn. Adrien had this way of making me feel like I mattered, like I wasn't just another student drowning in assignments and part-time jobs. He'd text me good morning before my alarm went off, and good night long after I'd fallen asleep. He made me laugh when I was stressed, brought me coffee on the days I couldn't handle one more lecture, and once showed up at my apartment with flowers. Just because. It wasn't long before he started talking about the future. "You should meet my parents," he said one evening, as we sat together on the balcony of his downtown condo, city lights glittering below us. "They'll love you. They've always wanted me to find someone special." I blinked, surprised by how quickly everything was moving. Surprised, but in the best way. "Are you sure? I mean, we've only been dating for—" He cut me off with a grin. "Trust me, Sarah, you're different." No one had ever said that to me before, not like that. And in that moment, I realized how much I needed to hear it. For the first time in years, I let myself believe I might actually have a love that was safe, and maybe even lasting. Before Adrian, my life was simple. Maybe too simple. I grew up in a small town just outside Austin, the kind of place where everyone knew your name and most of your secrets. My childhood wasn't perfect, but it was real, and sometimes tough. My mom, Patricia, though everyone calls her Patty, was a woman who could stretch $1 like it was magic. She worked endless shifts at the local grocery store, stocking shelves, running the register, doing whatever it took to keep food on our table. My dad left when I was 7. No calls, no birthday cards, just gone, like someone had cut a hole in our lives and never patched it. Mom never spoke badly about him, but I noticed the way her eyes hardened whenever someone mentioned his name. She didn't have the luxury of bitterness. She had 2 daughters to raise, and she carried that weight alone. Then there was Jenna, my sister, 3 years older. To me, she was larger than life, confident, graceful, unstoppable. She was a dancer, and not just any dancer. She won competitions, got invited to showcases, and dreamed of New York. Watching her perform was like watching someone take flight. Then came the accident. A rainy night, a slick road, a driver who couldn't stop in time. Jenna's left leg took the worst of it. The doctors saved it, but her dream was gone. She tried for months, pushing through the pain, desperate to keep dancing, but eventually, she couldn't. And then her fiancé left. He said all the right things. "It's not you, it's me. I just can't handle seeing you like this." But the truth was simpler. He didn't want a life with someone who couldn't dance anymore. After that, Jenna pulled away. She stopped performing, stopped dating, stopped living. Some days she seemed okay, laughing like her old self, but most days she stayed in her room, headphones on, pretending the world outside didn't exist. Watching her go through that is what made me cautious about love. I told myself I was focused on school, on chasing my degree in Spanish language and literature, but deep down, I was just scared of giving someone that much power over me. Still, a part of me longed for something real, not just a fling, not just a boyfriend. I wanted someone who truly saw me, someone who stayed. That's probably why Adrian felt like such a miracle. He walked into my life with that easy smile and warm voice, and suddenly, for the first time in years, I didn't feel weighed down by everything I'd seen fall apart. Mom noticed before anyone else. One Sunday, she set down her mixing spoon and gave me a look. "You've been smiling more lately," she said, half teasing, half suspicious. "Is there a boy involved?" Usually, I would have brushed it off, but this time, I laughed and nodded. "Yeah, Mom, there's someone." She studied me for a long moment, like she was deciding whether to be happy or worried. Then she sighed softly. "Just promise me one thing, Sarah. Take care of your heart. It's worth more than you know." At the time, I thought she was just being protective. I didn't realize how right she was. When Adrien invited me to dinner with his parents, my stomach twisted with nerves, though I couldn't deny a spark of excitement. Meeting someone's family wasn't casual. It meant something. It meant he was serious about me. "They're a little different," Adrien said with a half smile as his car wound through the hills. "Grew up in France, traveled all over Europe. You'll like them." That word different toed in my mind all day. Before I left, my roommate Emily had pulled me aside with the strangest advice. "If they speak French, pretend you don't understand," she said. "People say things when they think you can't follow along." I laughed. "Emily, I only took beginner French as an elective. I can barely order a croissant." "Exactly," she pressed, wagging a finger. "Don't let them know you understand anything. Just smile and nod. Trust me." So that's what I planned to do. The DuPont home looked like something straight from an architectural magazine. Clean modern lines, glowing light, and European art on every wall. Helena DuPont greeted us first. Tall, elegant, her hair swept into a perfect bun. Her husband, Robert, followed quietly, his eyes sharp and unreadable. I sat up straighter under his gaze. "Bene," Helena said warmly, kissing Adrien on both cheeks before turning to me. "And you must be Sarah." "Hello," I murmured, smiling politely. Adrien added quickly. "She mostly speaks English, Mom." Helena's smile softened, though something flickered in her eyes. Curiosity, amusement, I couldn't quite tell. Dinner looked like a painting. Polished oak table, crystal glasses, flickering candles. At first, everything felt perfect. Helena asked polite questions about my studies and family. Robert chimed in here and there, and Adrien kept his hand resting on mine, grounding me. But halfway through dessert, Helena glanced at her husband and slipped into French. "Nest ce pas, elle ne sait pas pourquoi nous avons besoin d'elle nest cepa. Doesn't she know why we need her?" My breath caught. I kept my face carefully blank. Adrien answered quickly, also in French. "Non, elle ne sait rien." No, she doesn't know a thing. Helena's lips curved faintly before she switched back to English, complimenting my dress as if nothing unusual had happened. I smiled politely, though inside my pulse thundered. Need me for what? The rest of dinner blurred together. I nodded when expected, smiled when I could. But those words replayed in my mind over and over. On the drive home, Adrien was cheerful. "So, What did you think of them? They're sophisticated, I said carefully. He chuckled. Yeah, they can be intimidating. Don't take it personally. They've just lived in a different world for a long time. I nodded, staring out the window, though unease pressed against my chest. That night in bed, I whispered the words I'd overheard. She doesn't know why we need her. It wasn't about love or family. It was about usefulness. And for the first time since I met Adrien, a thin thread of fear cut through the warmth I felt for him. 2 weeks later, Adrien surprised me in my kitchen. Let's get away this weekend, he said casually, leaning against the counter. Just us. I booked a cabin in the hill country. You could use a break. On the surface, it sounded perfect, quiet, romantic, far from school and stress. But Helena's words still haunted me. I hesitated, and Adrien cupped my face gently. You've been tense. Let me take care of you, just this once. Slowly, I nodded. Okay, that sounds nice. The drive was beautiful. Rolling hills, wildflowers swaying in the Texas breeze, Adrien humming softly along with the radio. He seemed so at ease, so normal. I wanted to believe it. The cabin itself looked like something from a travel magazine. Wooden stone, a wide porch, and beyond it, a lake reflecting the evening sun. Pretty amazing, huh? Adrien smiled, slipping his arm around my waist. Inside, it was even more stunning. Cozy rugs, a glowing fireplace, a stocked kitchen. Adrien poured me a glass of red wine. To us, he said warmly. We laughed. We cooked together, and for a while, I forgot that nagging doubt in my chest. But then I noticed how often he refilled my glass. By dinner, my head felt light, my words thick. Adrien, I feel tired. He was at my side instantly, lowering me gently onto the couch. Just rest, he whispered, his voice soft, but distant. Darkness swallowed me. I woke to the damp smell of wood and something faintly metallic. My head ached, my wrists bound behind me, a cold floor beneath me, a basement. Panic surged through my chest. Above me, Adrien's voice, calm and deliberate. Yeah, she's ready. Everything's in place. A chill raced through me. Ready? Ready for what? I twisted against the ropes, my voice breaking with fear. Adrien, what are you doing? He appeared at the top of the stairs, moving slowly, his expression soft, almost tender, but something about it felt wrong. Sarah, he said, you don't understand now, but you will. This is going to change your life. My heart pounded so hard I thought I might faint. Untie me. Adrien, please. Whatever this is, it isn't funny. He crouched in front of me, brushing a strand of hair from my face. Trust me, he whispered. Soon, you'll thank me. And in that instant, staring at the man I thought I loved, I knew two things. He wasn't who I believed him to be, and if I didn't get out, I might never make it home again. The ropes bit into my wrists, burning with every movement, but I didn't care. Panic sharpened everything, my ragged breathing, the icy floor beneath me, even the faint hum of crickets outside. Adrien's voice drifted from upstairs. Come steady. Yeah, she's ready. Everything's in place. No, she doesn't suspect a thing. My stomach twisted. Ready for what? I glanced around the basement. A single bulb swayed overhead, spilling pale light across the concrete walls. Then I spotted it. A rusty nail sticking from an old wooden frame. Shifting carefully, I inched toward it on my knees, praying the ropes didn't snap loud enough for him to hear. My pulse thundered in my ears as I began grinding the ropes against the nail. Nothing at first. Then one strand gave, then another, until one hand slipped free. I froze, listening. Adrien was still on the phone upstairs. My trembling fingers worked frantically at the rest, and soon my wrists were loose. I moved to my ankles. Sweat slicked my palms. But finally the ropes fell away. The stairs were too dangerous. I turned to the small window near the ceiling. It was tight, but I shoved. It opened, scraping my arms on the rough frame. Cold night air rushed against my face as I dropped to the ground outside. I ran. Branches tore at my skin as I sprinted into the woods. Behind me, a shout split the night. Sarah, stop. It's not what you think. But I didn't stop. My lungs burned. My legs screamed, but I kept running. Every snapping branch sounded like his footsteps closing in. Then, up ahead, a faint light. A cabin. I stumbled toward it, tripping on a root and slamming hard into the ground before scrambling back up. Help, I screamed, pounding on the door. Please, help me. The door swung open. A tall man stood in the frame, broad-shouldered, wearing a gray hoodie. At his side, A Belgian Malinois growled low, muscles tense. "What's going on?" he demanded. "Someone he drugged me, tied me up. He's coming, please." My voice cracked as tears spilled down my cheeks. The man didn't hesitate. He pulled me inside and barked a command. "Duke, watch." The dog bolted into the night, barking fiercely. From somewhere behind us, Adrien cursed and fell silent. The man slammed the door and locked it. "You're safe now," he said firmly, scanning me from head to toe. "You're shaking. Sit down." I collapsed into a worn leather chair, my whole body trembling as the adrenaline bled away. "Who tied you up?" he asked, kneeling to inspect the raw burns on my wrists. My boyfriend, Adrien Blake," I stammered. My voice cracked. "He's not who I thought he was." The man's jaw tightened. "Name's Mark Bennett. I live out here. Ex-army, search and rescue." "You're safe here, thank you," I whispered, tears spilling again. He grabbed his phone, dialed quickly, then crouched beside me once more. "You're okay now. Whatever he planned, it's over." But deep inside, I wasn't sure. Adrien had a reason for what he did, and until I knew what it was, I wouldn't feel truly free. The deputies arrived 20 minutes later. By then, my mom and sister had come to Mark, had called them when I couldn't find the words. My mother wrapped me so tightly in her arms I could barely breathe. "You're safe now, baby," she whispered. But even as I clung to her, one thought echoed in my mind. Why did they need me? At the sheriff's office, the fluorescent lights felt harsher than the cold night outside. A deputy wrapped a blanket around my shoulders. "Take your time, Miss Mitchell," he said gently. "Start from the beginning." So I did. Meeting Adrien. Falling in love. Dinner with his parents. The French words I wasn't supposed to understand. And finally waking up tied in a basement. When I finished, the room was silent. Detective Harris tapped his pen thoughtfully. "You said you understood some French. What exactly did you hear?" I repeated it carefully. "She doesn't know why we need her, does she?" And Adrien's reply, "No, she doesn't know a thing." Harris exchanged a look with another deputy. "That matches intelligence we've been gathering." My brow furrowed. "Intelligence on what?" Harris leaned forward. "Adrien Blake isn't just some charming boyfriend. His adoptive parents, Robert and Helena DuPont, are under investigation for international fraud." My voice broke. "They've been posing as humanitarian consultants, claiming to help wealthy families find missing relatives. They charge millions, but in most cases, they don't find anyone. And when they do," Harris's eyes locked with mine, steady and grim, "they deliver the wrong person. A look-alike." My stomach dropped. "A look-alike like me." He nodded. "One of their clients is Victor Ryabins, a billionaire who lost his daughter years ago. He's desperate to find her, willing to pay anything. Your resemblance to her is uncanny." The room spun. "So Adrien, he never loved me. He targeted you," Harris said flatly. "He built trust, made sure you were emotionally invested, then planned to deliver you to Ryabins as his missing daughter. They would have forged enough documents to make it look real." A chill sank so deep into me I thought I'd never be warm again. By morning, deputies raided the cabin where Adrien had held me. They found ropes, sedative-laced wine, and a duffel bag of forged paperwork including a passport with my picture, but someone else's name. Robert and Helena were arrested at a private airfield, minutes from boarding a flight to France. Adrien was caught hours later, hiding in an abandoned storage facility. When they brought him in, I was still giving my formal statement. He looked calm, almost resigned. "Sarah," he said softly, as they walked him past me in handcuffs, "you don't have to hate me. I was giving you a better life." I stared at him, stunned. "You call that a better life? Drugging me, lying to me, selling me like property." For the first time, a flicker of something crossed his face. Maybe it was shame, maybe regret. But whatever flickered across his face vanished as they led him away. The FBI stepped in within days. It turned out this wasn't the first time the DuPonts had pulled something like this. In Europe, they'd run similar confusing lookalikes to pose as missing heirs. Most victims had stayed silent, too ashamed or too haunted to speak. But I refused to be quiet. I gave my statement to anyone who needed it. Hours of interviews, endless depositions. Time I spoke. It felt like I was reclaiming a piece of myself Adrien had tried to steal. The nights were brutal. I'd wake up gasping, convinced I was still in that basement, still tied down, still hearing Adrien's voice whispering that I'd thank him later. Mark Beneth, a man who saved me, checked in often. Sometimes he didn't say a word. He'd just sit on the porch beside me. Duke, his Belgian Malinois, stretched out at our feet. Somehow, that quiet presence made it easier to breathe. I was free, but I didn't feel safe. Not yet. The weeks after Adrian's arrest blurred together. Safety wasn't what I thought it would be. Every night I jolted awake, trapped again in memory, hearing his voice echo, "You'll thank me later." Mom tried to help the only way she knew how, by cooking. There was always another casserole in the fridge, another pie cooling on the counter. Jenna tried to. At first, she stumbled for words, but slowly she opened up about her own scars. "You didn't deserve that," she told me one afternoon, her eyes glassy, "and I didn't deserve what happened to me, either. Maybe we both need to stop blaming ourselves for what other people did." Her words stuck with me, but it was Mark who helped me start breathing again. One evening he showed up, Duke trotting happily beside him. "Thought I'd check in," he said, scratching the dog's ears. "See how you're holding up." I shrugged. "Some days are okay, some, not so much." Mark nodded like he understood everything I couldn't put into words. "That's normal. Healing isn't neat. It's messy, it's slow, and that's okay." His voice carried a weight I hadn't noticed before. Later, he told me why. Years earlier, his wife and young daughter had died in a car accident. He left the army after that, retreating to the hill country to escape the way people looked at him, like he was broken. Walking Duke near the lake one night, he admitted, "I couldn't stand it, so I came out here where nobody knew me." I looked at him then, realizing he knew exactly what it meant to crave safety and fear it at the same time. To want connection but be terrified of it. Over the weeks, we talked more. Sometimes about big things, grief, trust, starting over. Sometimes about little things like which coffee shop made the best cinnamon rolls. Every conversation felt safe. Mark didn't try to fix me. He didn't tell me to smile or to move on. He just let me be. Then, one evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills and painted the sky gold, he said something that stopped me cold. "You're stronger than you think. You didn't just survive, Sarah. You ran, you fought, you got yourself out. That's grit most people never find." I swallowed hard. "I don't feel strong." "You don't have to feel it to be it," he said softly. In time, we began helping each other heal. He encouraged me to take long walks again without panicking at every snapping branch. I encouraged him to let people back into his life, even if just a little. Then came something none of us expected. With help from Mark's old army contacts, we found Victor Riabun's real missing daughter Julia. Watching father and daughter reunite after decades apart was overwhelming, not just for them, but for me. It reminded me that not everything ends in betrayal. Some endings can be good. That night, sitting on the porch with Mark and Duke, I felt something I hadn't in a long time: peace. Mark handed me a cup of coffee. Quietly, almost shyly, he said, "You know, I like having you around." For the first time in forever, I smiled. A real smile. I like being around too. And in that moment, with Duke curled at our feet and the stars stretching endlessly above us, I realized something powerful. I wasn't afraid anymore. Not of Mark. Not of trusting someone new. And maybe not even of my own future. The seasons shifted as my life slowly pieced itself back together. What once felt like endless darkness began to soften into something brighter, safer. Mark and I never rushed, yet it always seemed as if we'd been walking toward each other from the start. He was patient, steady, the kind of man who made silence feel like comfort instead of awkwardness. One evening, Jenna stood before me with tears in her eyes, no crutches beneath her arms. "I've been approved for the final phase of surgery," she said, her voice trembling with joy. Victor Riabink, overwhelmed with gratitude for helping him reunite with his real daughter, had quietly covered every expense Jenna needed to dance again. The night before her operation, Jenna squeezed my hands and whispered, "You saved me, Sarah. Without you, I'd still be hiding. You didn't just escape, you pulled me out of my own basement, too." I held her close, realizing healing is never just one person's story. It spreads outward, touching everyone we love. Months later, on a warm spring evening, Mark led me to the lake near his cabin. Duke bounded ahead, tail wagging, as if he knew what was coming. "Sarah," Mark began, his voice carrying a nervous edge I had never heard before. "I spent years believing my life was over, that love was something I'd already lost. But then you showed up at my door, terrified and brave all at once, and you woke me up." He pulled out a small velvet box and opened it to reveal a simple, elegant ring. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I want to face it with you. Will you marry me? Tears blurred my vision as I whispered, yes. And in that moment, everything stood still, the wind, the trees, even my fear. Because for the first time, I wasn't broken. I was whole. We had a small wedding in Jenna's favorite dance studio, the very place she had once refused to enter. That day, she danced again, slow, careful, but radiant, while Mark and I watched with tears in our eyes. A month later, as Mark and I unpacked the last box in the little house he had built, I held a pregnancy test in my trembling hands. Positive. That night, I stood on our porch beneath the stars of the Texas Hill Country, one hand on my stomach as I whispered, "We're okay now. We're safe." I had once believed the world would always feel dangerous, that trust would always be out of reach, but I was wrong. Sometimes life has to break you open so something stronger, something more beautiful, can grow. And this life, the one I had nearly lost, was finally, completely, mine again.